searching for something. Her hands were pressed against her temples as if trying to hold back a headache. Her eyes darted around, but she didn't seem to find whatever she was looking for. John had seen many things in his life. People in trouble, things that didn't make sense. But this was different. He didn't want to ignore her. His instincts kicked in. He had grown up in a small town on Earth where helping others was second nature. If someone was in trouble, you offered a hand. No questions asked. He walked over to her slowly, trying to make sure he didn't startle her. "Are you all right?" John asked gently, keeping his voice calm. The woman turned toward him quickly, her eyes wide with a mix of surprise and uncertainty. She blinked a few times, seemingly processing his words. It was then that John realized she was having trouble understanding him. He had never met someone from her species, but it didn't take long to figure out that communication would be an issue. He tried again, speaking more slowly this time, hoping she might catch a few words. "I'm John," he said. "Can I help you?" She stared at him for a long moment, her eyes scanning his face as if trying to read him. Then she gave a small nod. He could tell she wasn't sure what to make of him, but she seemed willing to accept his help. John smiled, relieved that she hadn't reacted with fear.
"You look like you could use some water or food. You've been standing here for a while, haven't you?" The woman nodded again, and John gently led her toward a nearby bench.
He could tell she was exhausted. She sat down slowly, still holding her head. John offered her a bottle of water from his bag, hoping it might help. She accepted it cautiously, taking a sip, but still looking uneasy. "I don't know if you understand me, but it's okay," John said, sitting next to her. He didn't press her for answers. He could tell she wasn't ready to speak. Instead, he sat in silence, letting the sound of the spaceport wash over them. The noise of ships departing, the chatter of travelers. John had always found comfort in the background hum of the world around him. For a few minutes, the two of them sat in silence. John occasionally glanced at the woman, wondering who she was and why she seemed so out of place. He didn't know what had brought her to this busy port, or why she appeared so distressed, but he was sure of one thing. She needed help. And that was enough for him. Without saying a word, he pulled out a small portable device from his bag and set it on the bench between them. It was a translation tool, one of the few gadgets he had picked up over the years for working with alien travelers. It wasn't perfect, but it could get the job done. "Here," he said, tapping the device. "It might help you talk if you need to." The woman looked at the device with interest, but didn't immediately touch it. She seemed to study it for a moment before her gaze shifted back to John. There was something almost otherworldly in her expression, as if she were weighing every movement and word. After a few moments, she touched the device, and it began to translate their words into a language that was easier for her to understand. John smiled. "It's not much, but it might make things easier." The woman nodded, her eyes softening just a little. The tension in her body seemed to ease, as if the simple gesture had made her feel more at home. She spoke for the first time, her voice soft and melodic, though the words were unfamiliar to John. The translation device worked quickly, and her words came through in clear English. "Thank you," she said. Her voice carried a slight accent, but it was easy to understand. I am lost. I do not know where I am."
John nodded. "You're at the spaceport in New Horizons."
"It's a busy place, but you'll be able to find your way soon." The woman seemed to relax, but there was still an air of confusion around her. She was clearly overwhelmed, and John could only guess how difficult it must be to navigate a strange world in a strange place. "Do you need help finding your ship or someone to speak to?" John asked, leaning forward. She hesitated for a moment, then shook her head. "No," she said, her voice a little quieter. I don't know where to go." John's heart went out to her. Whatever her reasons for being here, she was clearly struggling. He could see it in her eyes, the vulnerability that came with being in an unfamiliar place, far from home. "All right," he said, "then I'll just stay here with you for a bit."
"No rush? You're safe?"
She looked at him, a spark of something in her eyes. Recognition, maybe, or just gratitude. It was hard to say, but John could tell she appreciated his kindness. For a moment, the bustling spaceport seemed distant. The people, the ships, the noise, it all faded away. There was only the two of them, sitting on that bench. John had no idea who she was. He didn't know if she was a traveler passing through or someone important, and he didn't care. In that moment, all he saw was a person in need, and that was all that mattered. The minutes passed quietly. John made a few more attempts at conversation, asking her where she was from, if she had a family, if there was anything he could do to help, but she remained silent, lost in her thoughts. Still, John didn't mind. He would wait as long as it took. One that seemed so small to him was about to change the course of his life forever. The following morning, John returned to his workshop at the spaceport. He was still thinking about the mysterious woman from the previous evening. Her appearance lingered in his mind, her silver skin, her striking violet eyes, and the calm but sad look she had carried. He couldn't stop wondering what had brought her to this part of the galaxy. She had been so distant, but he could tell she was more than just a lost traveler. She had been looking for something, but whatever it was, she didn't seem to find it. John went about his usual routine, fixing engines and checking parts, but his thoughts kept drifting back to her. Who was she? Where did she come from? What had caused her distress? But he had done what he could to help, but there was so much more he wished he could understand. The quiet moments in his shop felt different now, as if something had changed, as if a door had opened to something he couldn't yet see. As the day went on, John's curiosity about the woman grew. He heard bits and pieces of conversation from his fellow workers. The spaceport was a busy place, always filled with travelers from distant worlds. Most people came and went without a second thought. But today, something felt different. He overheard a conversation between two cargo workers. They were talking about an unusual woman who had been seen walking around the spaceport, drawing attention from several important people. John didn't pay much attention at first, thinking it was just another gossip session about some traveler. But then he heard something that caught his ear. "Did you see her?" one of the workers said. "She's the queen of the Arethus system. No one knows how she got here or why, but she's one of the wealthiest people in the galaxy." John's ears perked up. "Queen?" The woman he had helped the night before? He couldn't believe it. He didn't know much about the Arethus system, but he had heard rumors of its immense wealth and advanced technology. To think that the woman he had spoken to, the one who had seemed so lost and vulnerable, was royalty, a queen, was unbelievable. The conversation continued, but John didn't stick around to hear more. His mind was racing. "That buzz first." He walked over to the small break room, leaning against the wall, trying to process what he had just heard.
A queen.
The idea seemed so far-fetched, yet the more he thought about it, the more it made sense. The way she had carried herself, the quiet authority she seemed to exude even in her confusion. It all fit, but why had she been here, alone and so unsettled? John couldn't shake the feeling that he had to do something. He had already helped her once, but that had been a simple act of kindness. Now it felt like there was more to the story, more that needed to be uncovered. Just as he was lost in thought, his phone buzzed with a message. He took it out and saw that it was a simple text from the same woman he had helped the night before. The message was short. "Meet me."
I need to speak with you.
John's heart skipped a beat. The message seemed so urgent, so direct. He quickly typed back a response, agreeing to meet her, and set off to the place where they had sat the previous night. His hands were slightly trembling as he made his way there, unsure of what to expect. When he arrived, she was already waiting. She was standing by the same cargo bay, but this time, her posture was different. Gone was the confusion, the uncertainty. Instead, there was a calm, collected energy about her. She looked different, stronger, more self-assured. "Thank you for agreeing to meet me," she said as soon as she saw him. Her voice was soft, but it held an unmistakable command now, a quiet power. The translation device was still attached to her belt, translating her words into simple English for John to understand. John nodded, still not fully able to believe that he was standing in front of a queen.
Of course. What's going on?
You seemed upset yesterday.
She gave a small smile, but it didn't reach her eyes. "I am fine now," she said. "But there is something I must explain, something important." John listened intently as she spoke. She told him that she was, in fact, the queen of the Arethys system, a vast and powerful empire on the edge of known space. Her people were highly advanced both technologically and socially, and they had the resources to build wonders beyond anything humanity could imagine. But despite the empire's wealth, there was unrest within her kingdom. Political factions, jealous of her rule, sought to overthrow her. The queen had come to this planet, disguised and hidden, to seek refuge and to gather allies. John tried to process everything she was saying. A queen, an empire, political intrigue. This was beyond anything he had ever expected. But there was one thing that stuck with him above all else. The woman in front of him wasn't just royalty. She was struggling, out of her element, seeking help from a simple mechanic. She was alone in a galaxy full of enemies, and yet she had turned to him for assistance. I never expected to find someone like you," she continued, her voice tinged with a note of gratitude. "I needed someone who would treat me like a person, not a queen."
You were the first.
John felt a pang of guilt. "I didn't do anything special," he said, trying to downplay his role. "I just helped you." "It's what anyone would do." She shook her head, her violet eyes locking onto his. "No."
You don't understand. Most people see me as a symbol, as a tool to be used.
"But you, John, you treated me as an equal. That's rare, even among my own people." John didn't know what to say. He was still reeling from the revelation, but there was something about her that made him feel a deep sense of responsibility. He didn't know what he could do to help her, but he felt a need to do something, to offer what little he could. "What do you need from me?" he asked, his voice steady despite the whirlwind of emotions inside him. "I need your help," she said, her tone serious now. "There are those who want to take everything from me. My throne, my people, my family.
I need someone I can trust, someone who won't be swayed by wealth or power. I need someone to stand by me even when the odds seem impossible."
John was silent for a long time. The gravity of her words settled in. This wasn't just about helping a stranger. This was about being part of something far bigger than he had ever imagined. And yet, despite the overwhelming nature of the situation, he couldn't bring himself to turn away. "I'll help you," he said quietly. "I don't know what I can do, but I'll help." She smiled, a hint of relief washing over her. "Thank you. That is all I ask." John didn't fully understand the depths of the situation he had just stepped into, but one thing was certain. His life would never be the same again. The next few days passed in a blur for John. After his conversation with the Queen, everything in his life had changed. He had always been a simple mechanic, someone who preferred the quiet hum of his workshop to the chaos of the galaxy. But now he was caught in a whirlwind, thrown into a world of royalty, danger, and uncertainty. John didn't see much of the Queen at first. She stayed in the shadows, always surrounded by a group of quiet, unseen protectors. Despite the grandeur of her true identity, she seemed just like a normal woman when they spoke. When she was with him, she was no longer the queen of an entire empire. She was just someone in need of help, someone looking for answers. But one evening, as John was walking back to his apartment after another long day at work, he received a message. The Queen wanted to meet him. The message was short and direct. John's heart skipped a beat. He had been wondering when she would ask to speak with him again. Something told him this meeting would be different. He was about to learn something that would change everything. John hurried to the meeting spot, a small, quiet alcove near the edge of the spaceport. It was a place where few people went, a little corner hidden away from the busy chaos of the main port. The Queen was waiting for him there, standing alone. Her usual guards were nowhere to be seen. "John," she greeted him, her voice soft but steady. She had been waiting for him, but now that he was here, she seemed unsure of where to begin.
"Are you okay?" John asked. He noticed that her usual calm was gone.
There was a nervous energy in the air, a sense of urgency. "I'm
Not sure," she said, her voice trembling for the first time.
"I'm losing control, John. My people are turning against me, and the ones who still remain loyal to me are too few to make a difference."
I've tried to run, to hide, but it won't be long before they find me here." John could see the fear in her eyes, a fear she had tried to hide. It was strange to think of someone so powerful, someone with so much at stake, showing such vulnerability. She was not just a queen. She was a person who had been thrown into a world of conflict, of politics and violence, and she was starting to realize that even her wealth and power might not be enough to save her.
"Is there anything I can do to help?"
John asked. His voice was gentle, but there was an edge of determination to it. He knew she was out of her element, and despite the dangerous world she came from, she needed him. That was something he could offer. The Queen looked at him, her violet eyes filled with uncertainty. She hesitated, as though weighing her words carefully before speaking them. Finally, she exhaled deeply. "There is something you can do," she said.
"But it's dangerous, and I don't know if you'll be willing to do it."
"I'm willing, whatever it takes." The Queen stepped closer, her presence powerful even in the quiet of the alcove.
"I need you to come with me to Arethus."
"To my home planet. There I'll be able to tell you everything."
Everything about who I am, who my enemies are, and why I've come here. I need someone by my side, someone who understands what it means to be
Human? I need someone I can trust?
John stood in silence for a moment. He had been expecting something like this, but hearing her speak the words out loud made everything feel so real. He had been drawn into a world he could barely understand, and now he was being asked to take the next step, to leave everything behind and travel with a queen to a distant, dangerous planet, Arethus. The name itself sounded like something out of a story, a distant world, a place of unimaginable wealth and technology, ruled by an empire that stretched across the stars. And yet, it was in this place that the queen, this royal woman, was struggling. She was seeking help, not from another empire or a powerful army, but from a simple mechanic who had once offered a kind gesture to a stranger. John couldn't back down now. He didn't know what he was getting into, but he knew that this was bigger than anything he had ever imagined.
"I'll go with you," he said finally.
His voice was steady, but inside his heart was racing. "I'll help you, whatever it takes." The queen looked at him, a flicker of hope lighting her expression. "Thank you," she said softly, stepping forward. "You don't know what this means to me." They spent the next few hours discussing the details of their plan. The queen explained that she had already arranged for a ship to take them to Arethus. It would be a long journey, one that would take them through uncharted space, past dangerous territories controlled by those who wished her harm. But the only way to get to her home planet, and to the heart of the political struggle she faced, was to go directly to Arethus. John listened carefully, trying to absorb everything she said. She spoke of alliances and betrayals, of families torn apart by ambition and greed. But despite the political struggles she described, there was a sadness in her voice. It wasn't just the fate of her empire that weighed on her. It was the loss of trust in her people, the feeling of being abandoned by those she had once trusted. After their conversation, they parted ways. John returned to his workshop to gather what little he could take with him. He didn't know how long he would be gone, or what he would face on Erithus, but something deep inside told him that this journey would change everything. The next day, he met the Queen again at the spaceport. She was waiting for him, looking more regal than ever. Despite the unease that still lingered in her eyes, she held herself with the quiet confidence of someone who had faced great challenges before. The ship that would take them to Erithus was unlike anything John had ever seen. It was sleek and futuristic, built for long journeys through deep space. As they boarded, John couldn't help but feel a sense of awe. This wasn't just a simple ship, it was a symbol of the Queen's power, of the vast empire she ruled. But now, it was a symbol of her desperation too. She was leaving behind everything, her throne, her empire, her people, to seek refuge in a place where she could rebuild what had been lost. As the ship lifted off from the spaceport, John glanced over at the Queen. She stood by the window, looking out at the stars. He could see the weight of her thoughts and her posture, the burden she carried with every step she took. But there was something else in her eyes, too, a spark of hope. She hadn't given up yet. And neither had he. They were in this together now. The journey to Erithus was long, much longer than John had expected. He had never been in a ship like this before. The vessel they traveled in was sleek and advanced, built to endure the vast stretches of space between worlds. Inside, it was a blend of luxurious comfort and sterile efficiency. Everything was automated. From the lights that adjusted to the time of day, to the food dispensers that delivered perfectly balanced meals with a simple command. The Queen, who had introduced herself as Elira, spent most of her time in her private quarters, occasionally coming out to speak with John. Despite the vast difference in their status, she was always kind to him. It felt strange to see her so humble, yet so regal at the same time. The weight of her position seemed to hang on her like a cloak, even when she tried to ignore it. John had learned more about her as the days passed. Elira was not just a queen. She was a daughter of a long line of rulers. A family whose reign over Erithus had lasted for centuries. The empire was built on wealth, yes, but it was also built on a deep-seated belief in strength and unity. But recently that unity had begun to fracture. Political factions, both inside and outside of the royal family, had grown restless. Many wanted a change in leadership, seeing Alira's compassionate rule as a weakness. They wanted power, and they would stop at nothing to take it. The more Alira shared, the more John realized the enormity of what he had gotten himself into. He was just a mechanic. He had never been trained for anything like this. Yet here he was, traveling with a queen, about to step into a world of political intrigue and danger. Despite the fear and uncertainty, John couldn't shake the feeling that he was meant to be here. Something had drawn him to her. Something more than just a chance encounter at a spaceport. Maybe it was his desire to help. Maybe it was the way she had trusted him. Either way, he felt a responsibility now. A purpose that had never been a part of his simple life before. The days continued to pass in the quiet hum of the ship's engines, and finally, they arrived at Erithus. As the planet came into view, John could hardly believe his eyes. It was breathtaking. The planet was covered in vast oceans and towering cities, their spires reaching high into the atmosphere. The cities were unlike anything John had ever seen before. Each building was a work of art, crafted from materials that shimmered in the light of the distant star. The entire planet seemed to glow with an otherworldly beauty, Erithus Prime.
The ship descended toward the capital city, Erithus Prime.
John felt a knot tighten in his stomach as they approached the landing pad. This was it, the heart of the Empire, the place where Alira had once ruled with unwavering authority. Now it seemed like a place she was only visiting in exile. As the ship touched down, A silence fell over the crew. The few members who had been with them on the journey began to pack up their things, but there was a noticeable tension in the air. John had seen it in Alira's eyes, too. They were on foreign ground now, and the dangers of Erithus were no longer distant. They were real, right in front of them. Alira turned to John, her eyes filled with a mix of determination and doubt. "We're here," she said softly. "Now, everything changes." John nodded, though he wasn't entirely sure what she meant by that. He hadn't seen the politics of this world yet, hadn't experienced the tension and rivalry that lay beneath the surface of the beautiful cities. But he knew one thing for sure. He wasn't going to leave her side. The doors of the ship opened, and they stepped out onto the landing platform. The air was thick with the scent of alien plants and the distant hum of city life. They were greeted by a small group of guards, each wearing sleek armor and carrying advanced weaponry. They were the Queen's personal protectors, the ones who had stayed loyal to her despite the political upheaval. John could see the reverence in their eyes as they bowed before Alira. She was their queen, but it was clear that their loyalty came with a heavy cost. They had seen what was happening in the Empire. They knew the risks of standing with her.
"Your Highness," one of the guards said, his voice low and respectful, "the Council is waiting for you."
She led the way through a series of long, shining corridors, the walls decorated with intricate carvings and sculptures that seemed to tell the story of Erithus's rich history. John couldn't help but feel a sense of awe as they walked through the palace. The beauty of this place was overwhelming, but it also made him feel small, insignificant in comparison. They finally arrived at a large circular chamber where a group of people were waiting. These were the members of the Royal Council, the leaders of the various factions within the Empire. John could tell that this was a critical moment for Alira. The council was not a welcoming place. The members seated at the table watched her with cold, calculating eyes, and the atmosphere in the room was thick with tension. Aliara took a deep breath and stepped forward, her voice steady as she addressed the council. "I have returned to Erithus to restore peace," she said.
"But I cannot do it alone. I need your support." The council members exchanged glances, some with raised eyebrows, others with narrowed eyes.
John could see the power struggle in the room, the unspoken questions. Some of them were skeptical of her return. Others were more interested in the power she represented, but none of them were willing to speak out against her directly. Alira was still a queen, after all.
"You've been gone a long time, Your Highness,"
one of the council members said, his voice filled with an almost mocking tone.
"What makes you think you can still command the loyalty of Erithus?" Alira stood tall, not letting his words affect her. "I don't expect loyalty from all of you," she said, "but I do expect you to remember what we built together. Erithus is my home, and it always will be." "I will not let it fall." The room fell silent. John could feel the weight of the moment pressing down on him. He had no idea what was happening behind the scenes, but it was clear that this was only the beginning of something far larger than either of them had anticipated. The council members began to speak, their words a mixture of praise and condemnation. They questioned Alira's judgment, her decisions, and her ability to lead. But through it all, Alira stood her ground, her gaze unwavering. She was determined to regain control of her empire, but the path ahead was uncertain, and the people in this room would not make it easy. John stayed close, listening to every word, trying to make sense of the political chess game that was unfolding. He wasn't a politician, but he could sense the underlying currents of power. Every word spoken in that room carried weight, and Alira's every move was being scrutinized.
After what felt like hours, the meeting ended, but the tension remained.
The council had made it clear that they were not willing to offer their full support to Alira yet. There would be more meetings, more negotiations, and more risks. The Empire was on the edge of a precipice, and it was unclear whether Alira would be able to pull it back from the brink. As they left the chamber, Alira turned to John, her expression weary but determined.
"This is only the beginning," she said. But we will fight, John.
We will restore Erithus. John nodded, feeling the weight of the responsibility on his shoulders. He had never imagined that his life would lead him to this point. From a mechanic on a small planet to the ally of an alien queen, he had become part of something far bigger than himself. The road ahead was uncertain, but one thing was clear. He had found a new purpose in life, and no matter what happened, he would stand by Alira, the queen who had shown him that even in the darkest times, kindness and loyalty could still make a difference.